Hey everybody, before I get started, I just want to mention a couple of ways that you can engage with me on a more personal level. I have a few avenues set up and I keep focusing on one, and I figured why don't I make a short little video talking about all of them real quick before we get into these episodes. So first thing, Patreon. There's a link in the episode description, and every episode description to the Patreon, as well as a video on the feed called Major Announcement that has all the details of what each tier offers and how much they cost. I implore you to check that out. I offer a lot of cool shit for my patrons. Second thing, the Discord channel. There's also a Discord link in the episode description and in every episode description. I have multiple channels set up there for each show that I'm covering, and it's a great way to just engage with me. I have a channel set up for MMA talk as well. I'm a big MMA fan, so if you're an MMA fan, you can check that out as well. There's a link to the Discord in the episode description. And then lastly, the Facebook and Twitter. Social media. Follow me on there. I post news on there. When I say news, I mean like, hey, I'm stopping covering this show. Hey, I'm starting covering this show. Let me know what you think about this. I do live watches of things on Facebook where like I'll check in and say I'm watching so-and-so show, and then I'll like live comment while I'm watching it, and that'll be cool if maybe you watch that show too and you want to watch along with me, or you're watching it later and you will see my thoughts, which are usually pretty entertaining because I'm usually pretty high when I'm writing them. So check out all those links in each episode description, and let's talk about this episode. Peace.
One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about Season 2, Episode 8, the Season 2 finale of Amazon Prime's Invincible, entitled I Thought You Were Stronger. The main theme of this episode is regret, I think for both Mark and Nolan, and that's reflected here in the title. I thought you were stronger is what Mark says to himself about himself after he loses control and does the absolutely necessary and justifiable action of beating Angstrom Levy to a bloody pulp. Mark spends the entire rest of the episode beating himself up over this, no pun intended. And even though what I just said was kind of slightly tongue-in-cheek, they did do a good job all season of showcasing the Mark doesn't want to be like his father aspect of the season. And even though I think Mark was totally justified in what he did, I think conceptually I like the idea of him being upset about it, but I also think they spend a bit too much time in the episode on it. Does that make sense? One of the issues I had with this episode, I thought it was a solid episode. Not great, not bad. Did some things well, like pretty much everything involving Mark and what he's been dealing with all season. The Mark stuff's been pretty strong all year. It's pretty much everything else that hasn't worked. And the same applies to this episode. I thought it did a fairly lackluster job of putting a stamp on a lackluster season. As a matter of fact, I think it might have done a better job setting up next season than it did closing out this one. But we'll get to that in a little bit. The episode opens with Angstrom Levy trying to emphatically explain the beef that he has with Mark. And this goes on for like the first 15 minutes or so of the episode, with scenes of Mark getting sent to random dimensions spliced in. Maybe if they hadn't introduced this plot line 5 fucking months ago in November, and then completely ignored it and did fuck all with it in that time frame, maybe they wouldn't have had to piss away 15 minutes of the finale reminding the entire audience who the fuck Angstrom Levy was. Like, I mean, I've been over it all season, and I'll get to it in a little bit, but you guys know. There are a couple of decent moments here, though. I like the dimension where Mark was just chopping heads off with his hand. Which, side note, that only served to remind me and make me continue to think about how Mark could have done the same thing to that kaiju last week that the other Viltrumite did. But anyway, I also liked when Angstrom said he's just as stupid in every dimension, because that has been a hallmark of Mark's, like rushing into stupid decisions. So I thought that was kind of like a nice, I don't want to say wink, because they're not trying to hide that necessarily, but he is stupid. Breaking Debbie's arm, I thought that was a pretty sick scene too. And I like that one threat where he had the portal underneath them and said that the portal went to a place where the ground was 8 levels below where they were at. I thought that was pretty dope. So, it wasn't all that bad, but just real quick, can you think of anything in this episode that compares in quality to some of the highlights of the season 1 finale. Just think about that. It had a scene of someone beating somebody to a bloody pulp, which was meant to be, I mean, those two scenes are meant to be parallel. Nolan doing it to Mark in the season 1 finale, and Mark doing it to Angstrom in this one. But because the Angstrom-Levy thing lacked the entire background that the Nolan-Mark thing did, it also lacked the weight of it. So it was just Mark beating a random motherfucker. It wasn't, it didn't matter, because we didn't fucking know this guy. They spent all that time reminding us, but the feeling was gone. I last saw this motherfucker in end credits last week, and then end credits 2 weeks ago maybe. He got one scene, I think, each of the last 2 weeks, but he didn't really, we haven't consistently seen him since I think it was the premiere or maybe the second episode. Anyway, and I'm not going to harp on this, but they failed this plot line by ignoring it for 5 months, knowing it was going to be the focus of the finale. Like I've said all season, and this is going to be it. I'm going to reiterate it for the last time. If you're not going to have Nolan, who is clearly the Homelander of this show, you need to replace him with a strong A-plot, and they didn't. And when I say if you're not going to have Nolan, I don't necessarily mean Nolan the character. I mean a strong A-plot, which was Nolan last year, and can be Nolan any season that you want it to be Nolan. It can be the strong A-plot. But if you're not going to have Nolan, then give me a different strong A-plot, and they didn't do that. And that made the clunkiness of all the non-Mark-based plot lines stand out. And like I said, the Mark stuff was the best stuff, but I mean, if that's your A-plot is the stuff that we saw with Mark this season, and comparing that to the Mark Nolan stuff from last season, I mean, come on, not even close. And again, they gotta drop this stupid fucking habit of introducing a plot line and then coming back to it weeks, if not months, if not years later. They gotta cut that stupid shit out, man. Anyway, Mark finally gets the upper hand on Angstrom, and after Angstrom's 70-second threat to Mark's family, Mark justifiably finishes him. Pause. But now he's stuck in a random dimension with nothing as far as the eye can see, so he's forced in the most inescapable way possible to just mentally grapple with the idea of becoming like his father. It's good work, and like I said at the top, they drag it out a bit too long in the episode, but they've set up Mark working really hard to avoid that, so they deserve to kind of bathe in the payoff for a little bit. Pause again. Bathe in the payoff. The Guardians arrive to pick Mark up from this dimension, sort of. It's the Guardians from a different dimension in which Mark was actually stuck in this place for 20 years. Now, I don't know if they intend on pursuing this plotline in season 3, but I would absolutely love for them to explore this dimension where Mark was stuck in this place for 20 years and then went back to his original dimension with everybody old. I would love to see that. Eve says that their dimension simply is not good now, and then Robot says, Mark wouldn't like the Mark that their Mark has become. Yeah, yes, that's right. And fuck, man, I want to see that dimension. Rex is Robot. I want to see that dimension. So I hope they go back to that in season 3. I can't necessarily say that was good season 3 setup because I don't know if they plan on continuing it. And even if they do, we might not see it until episode 9.5. They could even do a thing where in that dimension, maybe Amber has powers, and so it's easier for them to be together. And I've already written half of season 3 for you guys already. Because in this episode, older Eve from the other dimension says that she loves Mark. Then at the end of the episode, even though that Eve told him to square things away with his Eve, Mark, still stupid, doesn't even broach the topic with Eve. Season 3, have him be with, the Eve in his dimension, but then reintroduce the other dimension and then have that Amber have powers in that one. But they'd have to figure out something for the fact that she'd probably be 20 years older than him. But even then, that could still be good. I've been waiting for 20 years for the Mark that I like to come back. And when Mark came back, he was a piece of shit. Now I have the Mark that I knew before he left. I'm writing this shit for you guys. Come on, man. Anyway, back to this dimension, this episode. After Mark returns to Earth and learns that everyone's fine, we learn how little this show thinks of killing off characters because they officially bring back every person that they killed this season with the return of Duplicate. And I know if y'all watch my videos, y'all know I was mad when I saw that shit. The only reason I'm not going to snap about this decision is because I have no more hatred left in me for this show over their habit of bringing back dead characters. They didn't even give good explanations for any of them. Like, they didn't give one for Rex at all. He just got it from a gunshot to the head. I was like, oh shit, I'm still alive. That's not one of his powers. Shrinking Rage is like, oh, well, we thought she died. She didn't. She just crawled out. Kate, I don't even know, like, what was that explanation? Like, she hid in a copy? Where was the copy? How'd she get out of it? Why'd she wait until after her funeral? Like, all questions this show should have answered and didn't because of sheer fucking laziness. The script probably said, asterisk, bring back dead characters, and then they had a note that said, we'll figure that out when we're animating it or something, whatever. Like, man, what a fucking insult to the audience to have no stakes on this show by showing that they're too pussy to kill off any character and too lazy to even write a half-ass justification for bringing them back. Like, I watched season 3 and I'm still going to enter it with an open mind because I love this show. Although it doesn't seem like it, but I'll never forgive them for this shit from this season. Like I said before, it could run 10 fucking seasons, and I'll never forget the lazy and cowardly death fake outs from season 2. Never. I want to close by talking about the last couple of things that I think are setups for season 3. There's a very random scene with two female, I'm guessing they're archaeologists. They're voiced by Ella Purnell and Chloe Burnett. Chloe Bennett. That was like Carol Burnett and Chloe Bennett pushed together. Chloe Bennett. So Ella Purnell, again, that X-ray, man, you pause that shit. As soon as I see a new character, pause. Am I supposed to know this motherfucker? or let me see who it is. So Ella Purnell, she plays Jackie on Yellow Jackets. Chloe Bennett, she was the... I don't even remember her name now, but she was on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. She was in the most recent season of Dave. Anyway, they discover a tomb that houses fucking Mum-Ra from Thundercats in it. I don't know, but he says he has to inhabit the body of a male host, unfortunately it's two women here, in order to escape the tomb, and then that's it. They just cut from that scene and never return to it. I'm going to assume they'll pick that up in season 3 again, probably like episode 9.5. But we're going to need another recap to remember because that's how this show gets down. Again, lazy. We didn't even need that. Just put that scene in whatever the fuck episode you want to do that story in. Like, it was a complete waste of time in this one. Anyway. Lastly, the episode ends with a face turn for Nolan. Expressing regret over everything he's done, saying he misses Debbie. I don't necessarily want a face turn for Nolan, but if it's going to get him back on Earth and back on the show, fuck it, because this show has clearly shown it will not perform without Nolan in it. It could, but it very clearly chose not to. It just chose to, like, juggle. It just chose to juggle while Nolan wasn't on the show. But like I said, it can be. They tried to do a Nolanless show this season, and in my opinion, it was an abject failure. If they want to bolster up the secondary characters, fucking do that. Maybe by giving them interesting storylines that we see scenes from more than once every 3 fucking episodes, and then maybe you can flesh out these characters and build them up to where you don't need Nolan anymore. This season tried to juggle too many plot lines, giving none of them a sufficient amount of time. Couple that with almost entirely removing Nolan from the show, and you're left with a season that's just a shell of the previous one. It was less fun. It was less violent and create with all the big creative killings. It had fewer of those. Significantly less interesting story. Hopefully we get a season 3. Hopefully there are more people out there expressing some of the same criticisms that I have and not fucking filleting the fucking show just because they like season 1 or are too pussy to be critical, just like the writers are too pussy to keep characters dead. Kirkman or whoever is the main brainchild behind what we see on the screen, I think they need to tighten this shit the fuck up. It doesn't feel... So that it doesn't feel like a collection of random shit. Like, let's just throw this fucking seed out here. Let's grab Rick from season 1, just throw him out here. Like let's just throw these fucking archaeologists into this episode for no fucking reason at all. Because the show's not even gonna be back if it gets a 3rd season for another 1.5 years anyway. 2 years. Yeah, I'm gonna remember that one fucking scene. Like, anyway, hopefully, I know it doesn't seem like it, but hopefully we get a 3rd season. If we do, I'll be here for it. Let me know what you thought in the comments until whenever the fuck that is that we get that 3rd season. They expect us to remember that one fucking archaeology scene from the season 2 finale. Until then, peace.